No mai, haere mai ki quite simply politics. Welcome back to another episode. I apologise for my absence. I have been extremely mawiri, which is sick. I have had about a week and a half off work, fully bedridden. So this is the first opportunity to be able to get back in the studio, and I have a very special guest here with me today. Now, this is our first guest that we have with us who is not a member of parliament. And remember, this podcast is all about sharing a wide range of voices. So that's including those people who work behind the scenes. Now, not only does he work behind the scenes with me, he works behind the scenes in politics and in election 2023. So we are going to have a very, very, very enlightening, hilarious, most likely, conversation with the one, the only, one of my favourite people in the world, Thompson. Welcome!
Kia ora. I feel like after it cuts to the reveal, people are going to be super disappointed.
Why would you say that?
They'd be imagining someone like, I can't imagine who people would think of, but here I am.
So, tell me about your journey into politics, because you're 27, right? 27?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm 32, and I feel like you've been in politics longer than I have. And so when I'm thinking about experience, oh my God, you have so much experience. So in a nutshell, tell us about your experience in politics and how you sort of got into it.
In a nutshell. I remember my first ever political sort of volunteer campaign experience was the 2013 election in Australia. Things are quite different over there. You're allowed to campaign on election day. You often have people handing out how to vote cards, shoving them in voters' faces as they walk into the polling booth. But
that is so weird.
Yeah, it's gross. It's such a waste of paper, but it sort of adds to the vibe of the day.
Yeah.
The day before, political parties start wrapping all the polling booths in bunting and signage, and so the complete opposite of what we have in New Zealand. In Australia, schools, wherever voting booths are, they're covered in political signage, and because they're set up the night before, people have to guard the booths because some parties will go and cut down other parties' signs, and it's total warfare.
Are you serious?
So my first ever sort of political volunteering experience was to stay overnight at a polling booth, just in a car. It was me and a friend were chilling in the car, just having a laugh, having some snacks overnight, making sure no one cut down our signs.
Which polling booth was it?
It was, this is 10 years ago, I can't remember. It was one of the schools in the electorate I lived in, and it was massive, so every half hour would get out of the car, do a loop of the school and then get back in the car. And it was fun back then, but I was 16, 17 back then, so I don't think I'd survive a night guarding a polling booth.
Seriously?
I'd be asleep by 9 o'clock.
Did anyone come and try to cut anything down or whatever? No.
It was fine. Not at our booth anyway, because it was it was a large school, but not many people voted there, so it wasn't an important booth. The other ones got targeted and things got ripped down, and once yours gets ripped down, you find someone to blame and rip down their signs, and then everything comes down, so the schools have to be rewrapped, and there's so much waste at the end of the day. But
do you know that I did the polling booth things, like what is it called where you watch here?
Scrutineering.
And so for scrutineering here in Aotearoa, you can wear a what is it called? A ribbon.
Rosette.
A rosette. And so I wore a rosette, and then I remember because I was in the seat of Rongotai, which is a strong Labour seat.
Karoha.
And obviously I was not wearing a Labour rosette. And then all these people were turning off, like, not the one, but those people came and were like, had to come and have a look, and they were like, no, she's following her around.
Yeah.
So to hear that Aussie doesn't like that, oh my God.
I remember one in 2015, it's a state election. The how to vote cards are literally just pieces of paper that encourage people to number each box in a certain order.
Yeah.
And in 2015, there were about 3 injunctions in the courts to try and get certain parties to stop being allowed to hand out their how to vote cards.
Really?
So, like, it gets intense on election day. You have legal teams in court all day trying to get things removed.
On election day?
On election day.
So I'm assuming it's a Saturday?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So the judiciary's working on a Saturday? Bring it over here! Bring it over here!
They're all very urgent motions, and I always questioned how much handing out flyers as people are walking into a booth when you're one in a crowd of like 20 people trying to shove your flyer in someone's hands, how effective that is. It's like, get out, get on the phones, get on the doors, encourage people to actually go and vote.
Yeah.
That's probably more
before the day
effective than what in the months leading up to it. So,
yeah.
like,
yeah. So you are deeply involved in election 2023 in lots of various capacities, including working with me and doing our great mahi and looking after all of the awesome kaupapa that we get to look after. But tell me about what you have thought about election 2023 in Aotearoa so far. Like, how have you been feeling the vibe?
I think it feels different.
Yeah.
But different compared to 2017 and 2020.
Yeah.
I can't really remember what elections felt like before then. And I think it's because sort of after when Jacinda came in 2017, like 6 weeks before the election. Sort of the vibe of politics changed. Everyone was aware of who Jacinda was, and Jacinda mania hit, and that sort of carried through up until the beginning of this year. There was just a different approach to politics. When Chippy took over, what I liken it to is politics sort of gone back to normal. It's because politics isn't that exciting. It's long days, it's lots of reading, it's lots of speeches that are far too long. Yeah. And it just feels like politics is back to normal. Yeah. And I guess why I say it feels different is because I'm so used to being intensely involved in this manic, exciting campaign that it feels different in a good way to just be able to get back to grassroots and I had to stop myself from saying focus on the bread and butter issues.
That's okay. What's it like for you when Prime Minister Dame Jacinda Ardern took over that leadership so close to the election?
Well, the day she was elected leader of the Labour Party, I started my job with the Labour Party as a field organiser. So
So you're the reason this is all happening.
No. It was, we had 6 weeks to the election. I always think back to 2005 when Labour was on the edge. We didn't know whether we were going to be re-elected or not. And it wasn't until the votes started coming through in South Auckland that we knew Labour had another term in government. Yeah. So I was their field organiser out in South Auckland for those 6 weeks. And it was intense. It was basically rebuilding a campaign from the ground up. But the most enjoyable part of it was that with Jacinda coming in, we just had an influx of people wanting to get involved in politics for the first time. And for me, the most special part was that it was a lot of like young Māori and Pacific people signing up to get involved, coming along to this whalean otara to make some phone calls and watch the leaders' debates, and it was really exciting. Long days.
Yeah.
We only had 6 weeks to pull off an election and win government.
How many hours do you reckon you're working?
Oh, not sure I should say. Might get
Pinged.
might get pinged by some department. But it was, a labour of love, because being able to support these young Māori and Pacific people to get involved in politics was so cool, and a lot of them still are today.
And where were you on election night? Can you remember?
I was all over the place.
I don't mean emotionally. I mean physically.
Yeah. We had our party election night function at the Aotea Centre. Before that, I think I was with Jenny Salesa in Otahu. That was really fun to be with all our volunteers that would spend the last 6 weeks intensely in each other's lives. Then we all sort of got in the van and headed into the city in time for... We had quite a bit of time to kill in Otahu, because it was too close to call all night and into the next few weeks. But
so if it hadn't have been, would you guys not have gone in?
Oh, we absolutely would have gone in. It's just, the longer it takes for the leader to make their speech, the more time you have to get in there.
Yeah.
By the time we got into town, all the other electorates had come in because they'd got the call. Like, hey, leader's going to make a speech at this time. Haere mai. And it was so crowded, and I just remember getting so overwhelmed that I went upstairs where it was empty and just sat there, and I think I was the only one in the overflow room because everyone was crammed in and wanted to hear his speech. It was great, but it was good to just be able to sit and chill and have a little cry. Not because I was sad, just because 6 weeks of like 24/7 always on your mind. It's the only thing you ever think of. And after any election, it's sort of, an election becomes this thing that takes up every waking moment of your life. And 7 p.m. on election day, it's all over. And so all of a sudden you've got this free time and you don't know what to do with yourself. And you're trying to think of things to do, but you're like, oh no, there's nothing I can do there. There's nothing I can do there. The only thing you can do is go and do the enrolled non-voter data collection from the Electoral Commission. And no.
No, thank you. So the election now, and you said it's felt like it's gone a little bit back to grassroots and bread and butter.
Hey, you said it.
What?
I'll try and get you to say it in it for you.
What has your experience been thus far?
Like I said, it feels normal. Not going to say easy, because campaigns are never easy.
No.
But it feels much more coordinated, organised. Not when you think about what's happening in Wellington, but when you think about what's happening on the ground. Yeah, it feels good.
Are people grumpy? Are you saying that?
I think from when I'm on the doors and on the phones, I think the sentiment is, come on guys, get your shit together. Yeah. They're disappointed, but they know that when we start talking about policy, that's when Labour shows what we care about, what matters to us.
What's the best policy that you guys have, do you think? Like, that you like the best? Well,
they haven't been released yet. I actually don't know what the ones not that involved. I don't know what our manifesto is. I'll keep thinking and come back to that one.
Because obviously there's a lot of parties pushing up policy, and I feel like it's getting policy overload. And for something where politics is essentially supposed to be about policy, I'm like, okay, guys, this is a lot now. You could have done this all like months ago, so we'd understood. But I'm interested because obviously we talk here in the office a lot about all the various policies. Is there any policies? Because you know that there's some that I despise.
Yeah, some that I despise too.
Are there any that you really, really dislike? And not in Labour, like just across the political board.
I think it's actually, the idea of, it's not that I've seen anyone commit to it, maybe the Greens have, but a universal basic income.
Isn't that TOP's policy?
I think so. Yeah. And it's often promoted by the minor parties, but let's get all political theory here. But I consider myself a social democrat, so you're making things work within a capitalist system because that's the system we have. Yeah. A UBI is not targeted. It doesn't go to the people who need it, and it I feel like it lets the shit parts of capitalism get away with being shit without actually fixing any of the problems. And that for me is what, like, no, you can't pave over the cracks. You need to actually fix the issues. So yeah, probably UBI for me. I know there's a lot of people who push quite hard for one, and I couldn't support it.
The people who are into it seem like doggedly into it.
Yeah, I think it's the same as rent controls. It's like there's evidence all over the world that if they're implemented as a short-term solution, they don't work because the increases that have been banned just get piled on at the end of that short term. In the long term, and they have to be very long term to work, they just move increases to the surrounding areas, and it impacts people who can't afford to live very close to the city. But I guess they're ideological differences.
You know what my view will be? It's typical state interfering in everyone's shit. Get out. What is the thing that you're looking forward to most coming up in the election campaign?
Oh, the 15th?
Oh.
Having a moi? No, but I think the leaders' debates are always fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to see Chris and Christopher going at it in the House, but when you're taken out of that environment and sort of put up against each other, it's sort of your formal job interview. You're like, which one of you is fit to be Prime Minister? It's always good to be able to watch and come to your own conclusions and hope everyone else is watching too.
How do you think that they're going? Like each of them?
Not sure. The real opinions will make us any friends, am I? No,
hey, you can't leave me out of the lead to be the only one that gives our real opinions.
I think, sorry, mine's just gone blank.
Well, with Luxon, right? Everyone sort of says, we can't connect with him, we sort of don't know what he's about, that kind of thing. And then with Hipkins, it's like, you're so distracted on cleaning up your own mess inside, we want you to focus on us, our country, not your own stuff. Like, what do you see as happening? Because you're closer to the campaign trail than I am.
I think it'll be easier on both of them. The public will get to see the real them a lot more come September.
Yeah.
Once Parliament's out of the way, the real campaign begins, and then they can actually get out there and start talking about policy, start talking about what they plan to do for the country over the next 3 years. I wish sausage rolls weren't such a big feature of the campaign.
Okay, you have to give the listeners context, because if that was clipped and our producer Nayan clips that, and then everyone just has the context of you talking about sausage roll and nothing more. So tell us about that.
So for as long as he's been in Parliament, Chris Hipkins has been known as the guy who always has a Coke and a sausage roll.
For what? Like breakfast or?
Always has a sausage roll and a Coke on him. Well, more a Coke. A can of Coke.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wait, does he have a no sugar Coke or just an actual Coke?
See, I don't like Coke, so I can't
differentiate.
I don't pay attention to the difference, but it's definitely there's a can of Coke
so
of
many
some
unnecessary
sort.
Calories.
I doubt it would be a full sugar Coke. To the point where there was like a fridge in his office that was just full of Coke.
Oh my god!
And I know one of his kaimahi I used to work with also loved the same type of Coke that he did, so they both had Coke fridges in their offices. And like, it's endearing, but I'm so sick of going to fundraisers where the main feature is sausage rolls as the kai.
Is that literally a thing?
Yeah, it's people are leaning into it, and it's cute for a while.
Yeah,
but then it gets like, okay, can we move past the sausage rolls and actually, talk about some things on the campaign that are meaningful.
It reminds me of pineapple on pizza.
Oh, you know what I heard?
What?
It's that that whole pineapple on pizza and the walk run thing.
Yeah.
Was they were all like gimmicks from a marketing company to make them more relatable.
So we're talking about Sir Bill English here when he was in the 2017 election.
Yes, PM.
Yeah, PM, and then going for re-election.
Yeah.
And so these things came up to try to make Sir Bill more relatable, or, well, it depends which side of the
electable.
Board. Yeah, or electable. And one of them was that he liked pineapple on pizza, and then that caused this big thing where everyone was like, "This is disgusting."
No, it was spaghetti on pizza.
Oh, was it spaghetti?
It was tin spaghetti, which I.
Where did the pineapple on pizza come from? Or was that just
maybe it was spaghetti and pineapple?
Yeah, okay.
But I thought it was great because, like, some of my best memories of when I was a kid is me and Impa, like, just making pizzas at home and, not Italian. So we'd get a tin of, like, buy some pizza bases from Countdown, tin of spaghetti and, like, cheese and ham or whatever, and I thought that was gourmet.
You mean to tell me you're not an Italian mother?
No. Oh. But like, no, that's definitely not a pizza.
Yeah.
But it was delicious.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then that came up that Sir Bill that was what he liked on his pizza or something. Yeah. And then there was
he posted a selfie, I remember, of him like putting the pizza in the oven, and it had tin spaghetti and maybe pineapple on it.
And then the walk run one was that he would go for runs, and when he needed to, like, what was that again?
I think he just took a selfie video of him and said, "I'm on a walk run."
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the reason why I can't remember any of this is that I had like mentally checked out because that was my final year working at the VR. So I was at that point just in trauma. So I was ready to leave.
Yeah, fair. May have just trauma blocked it all.
Yeah, like, no. Just get me out and get me on that boat in Croatia.
Do you remember where you were watching the election results?
What do you
were
mean?
You in Croatia? Or
what, when Winston announced?
Yeah, when Winston announced.
Yeah, I was on a boat in Croatia. Not watching the election results.
You weren't?
No.
I was, well.
I didn't
you checked out, I was just signing in.
I did. You're like, replacing. Boisterous Marley coming through. No, because I was so far gone from everything, so exhausted. And bear in mind, I loved my time. Loved it. But I'd done my dash. Like 4 years, I'd had enough. And for context, that's not a lot of time.
No.
Like, there's colleagues who I worked with, we were in there for the whole 9 years. But I didn't even look at my phone, check notifications or anything. And then there was an Aussie on the boat who said, "Oh, that Winston guy is gone with labour or something." And I had heard it from the other part of the boat. And I was like, "What?" And then all the Aussies were talking about it. Because obviously there was like all these Aussies on the Sarah Croatia as well. And then I was like, "Oh." And then there was that slight twinge. Because I had worked for National. I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, "I'm in Croatia.
Do I care?
I don't care." And then proceeded with my break.
See, I was in Raro. We'd just taken it. No, it's been an intense 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I just need to be somewhere where I can turn off my phone.
Yeah.
No one can contact me. Then it turned out there were a couple other like Labour kaimahi in Raro as well. So we were all just like, "Oh, I can't get away." And every day, mobile data there is so expensive. So we would take turns each day. One of us would buy a top up, and then we'd be the ones monitoring that day. And then it's like, "Well, it wasn't today. You're up tomorrow."
Yeah.
And it got to the announcement day, and I was on a party bus with we were just like we were bar hopping in Rarotonga, and when the press conference started, I was on the bus and the music was doof-doofing, and the rest of the bus was all Kiwis as well. And like they could see me intensely looking at the phone and like trying to hear what Winston was saying, and then they were like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Oh, Winston Peters is about to pick the next Prime Minister." And one of them went up to the driver and was like, "Turn the music off!" Stop! And so it was just, they plugged in my phone and we were all listening and watching on the bus. And we got to the next venue and he was still talking and just carrying on about, I don't know, trying to hog the spotlight, I guess.
Probably about, I don't know, the signing of T32 and how that doesn't have any relevance in modern day. And how it's probably...
It's just nattering on for far too long. And we ended up being like parked outside the next bar for like a good 5-10 minutes. And like half the bus got off, but then there was like some of us were still just glued to the phone.
Yeah.
And then he said Labour, and like we all celebrated and got off the bus and went to go get drinks, and then all I remember is being like, "Holy shit." What happens now?
Yeah.
And it was swift and things moved quickly, and here we are today.
Can you remember what drink you were having?
Yeah. Ironically, it was just this big blue fishbowl. I don't remember
I'm taking the joy from you all.
I don't remember what was in it, but it was just a massive bowl and it was blue. And it had lollies in it, which is why.
Oh, love that. What are you doing after this election? Have you got a break planned? Do you think? Like, what are you...
I think... Well, you have to ask me after the proper campaign period starts and things start getting into that intense 6-week period. But no, I think my my switch off relax time is like over the New Year period where I do just sign out of everything.
Yeah.
And,
you actually do sign out. You barely even text me back. I'm like, "Excuse me, I need some attention."
To be fair, half the time I'm in the middle of a random field in Kaiwaka.
Yeah, that's true. And then it comes up green for ages, and then it will come up blue, and then I'm like, I've got like 2 seconds and
I don't even worry about where my phone is because we've all got walkie-talkies to talk across the farm. And we're doing whānau Christmas in Taihape.
Nice.
So that'll be nice to see all the whānau and sign out.
It's really weird that it's it's literally like 5 months away.
I know.
We're in Here Tori Koka, like August.
Yeah.
And it's so close.
Yeah.
Yet it's so far too. There's so many things to get through.
There's like 70-something days until the election. And from the election, there's 2 months to Christmas. The year's all wrapped up.
Do you reckon that it's going to be super, super close?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's part of the whole politics back to normal thing.
Yeah.
Like, 2020 was not normal for a single party to win outright.
It was crazy, eh?
It was almost, I remember we got some modelling from our head office team to show that, if Labour reaches 40%, these are all the electorates will win. In terms of polling, if we reach 45, these are the electorates will win. If we reach 50%, these are the electorates will win. And I remember a lot of us sort of scoffing at the research that we got because we'll never win Ilam. We're not going to win Upper Harbour.
Yeah.
And we won them. And when I saw those seats fall, my first thought was, well, we owe the team an apology because they were dead right.
Yeah.
We won all the seats that they modelled we'd win, and it was just confusing, really. So how are they counting the votes right?
Yeah.
This doesn't happen in NNP.
Yeah. Do you think that was good for democracy, though? Like, this is removing the political lens and more just being like, because there was an outright majority in the House. And obviously, given what we do working as lobbyists, we have to actually, consider whether or not, I'm often thinking, is that really good? Like an outright majority? Was it?
No. I mean, thinking back to my time in Australia, I think the time we got the most sort of well thought out and good policy through was that last term of government under Julia Gillard, when it was a hung parliament and you had to constantly talk to the crossbenchers and make things better to get enough support across parliament. If you're able to ram things through without talking to anybody, and not that they don't, I'm sure that they talk to people they want to talk to.
Yeah.
But being forced to consult and forced to improve things to get enough support is always a good thing.
Yeah, like, I remember Te Pāti Māori, or Māori Party as they were known then, when I was working in the Beehive, were really good at getting National to resile from things or give, concessions. And it's that stuff that you don't see happening. I remember United Future as well, Peter Dunn. He was also very good at doing it, just saying, like, here's what it's going to take. And it's interesting, because it's almost like now that the opposition, not opposition, crossbenchers and that, there's not that element there. It's almost like the public voice has got louder. Because it's actually...
It's sort of had to, right?
Yeah, it's had to, which is very fascinating. So I'm interested to see what will happen after the election, because I don't think it's going to be a very, God forbid, like, touch wood, we have another pandemic, but I don't think that we'll ever see an outright majority in our parliament ever again.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to sort of see how that plays out.
Yeah. I mean, with all the electoral reform stuff happening, as much as it would bring in quite a few parties that I don't agree with and have some, frankly, wacky conspiracy theories, I think lowering the threshold is a good idea. It brings more diversity and forces people to work together across Parliament to get things done.
What number do you want it at?
Oh, well, I'm not sure I've settled on a number. The current prop is 3%. That seems fine to me.
3%, so that would see top in... it would see New Zealand first in...
It would secure Te Pāti Māori in. So it's not too many, like, single MP parties that would get in, but at least it's more of a voice, more diversity of parties.
Yeah, God forbid, though, Ryan Tamaki and his lot get in. That's what we...
That's what I meant by loonies with conspiracy theories. Yeah. Look, I wish that, as a gay man, I could control the weather and send out an earthquake whenever I wanted to.
Are you telling me
the
that you're...
power that
Are you telling me that you don't do that?
Look, can either confirm or deny.
I thought you were. Your nickname was Tafari Marcia. Like, what are you talking about?
That's my drag name.
She comes in on a cloud.
But, whoever gets into Parliament, sort of, you never know what it's like until you're in there, right? Yeah. Even as staffers.
Yeah.
We can't tell people what being an MP is like because we've never been MPs. Yeah. We've never been the actual minister whose neck is on the line.
But hell, we can say what it's like being an advisor.
Oh, God. And, like, once those smaller parties are in Parliament, it's make or break. Because whether they can handle the pressure of that place, to be seen whether or not they show up for work is, they might come
show up
crashing back to reality.
Show up for work. Do you mean like being present or giving proxy votes?
Oh, yeah. Being in the house and, it's all good and well to want to be out in your community, but your job is to represent people in the house.
So for those of you who aren't aware, this is a particular reference to Te Pāti Māori that consistently doesn't put in their votes, and you can do a vote by proxy. So one of your duties in Parliament is to vote on things. And it's not hard. Remember, there was a time when David Seymour was a party of one in ACT. And while I can't verify this, but I'm sure somebody who's got far better access to time to have a look at stuff would be able to go back and say, was his proxy given? I can rest assured say that probably more than likely that every time his proxy was given in. But it's just a consistent... What would you call it? It's just...
absence.
Yeah, consistent absence of doing one of your fundamental duties to that house is to vote and cast those votes. And it just is some too proud people with whakapapa Māori to have those representatives not doing that, which is fundamentally writing a piece of paper and saying 2 votes yes or 2 votes no. Yeah. And not doing it. It astounds me, especially given they've got kaimahi. Yeah.
Teams of people to look at the order paper and see what bills are coming up for debate and formulate an opinion, write that opinion down and give it to the people who are casting votes for you. I get that not every MP can be physically present in the House all the time. But far too often, the clerk will call a party vote and
silence.
And they'll get to Te Pāti Māori and Mika and the other independent MPs.
Yeah.
And it's just Elizabeth, silence. Yeah. And it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Because, you were elected by people to represent them.
Yeah.
And you should do that on policy. It's your job to make policy.
Do you think that they should sanction them? Like anyone who doesn't cast their vote?
Well, I'm not sure about sanctions. I mean, the sanction is ultimately the election, right? The public get a say on whether that's okay or not. But in Australia, MPs have to actually be in the House to vote. There's no party votes.
Oh, yeah, tell me this. Okay, yes.
Which
share the story of it.
Love. Because when I was working there, they all literally had beepers connected to them somewhere. And they would get beeped by the party where every time there was a vote on, the bells would go off and then you'd get beeped and you have to drop everything and run to the house. and it was mental. I remember there was one time a vote was called for something, and one of the Labour MPs was in the gym, and so he didn't have time to get dressed. We've got a couple minutes to get to the house.
Yeah.
And so he just rocked up into the house in his gym gear and trainers, and
love that,
and went straight to the table, poured himself a glass of water, then walked over to whichever side he had to vote with. It was really cool. Not often that they show up in the house in gym gear.
Yeah. But is there rules around like attire?
I'm sure there is.
But
code,
it doesn't.
But
It's
sort
a
of
vote.
like, well, he had to vote. Would you rather he missed the vote?
Yeah.
To get dressed, or just him do his job?
Yeah. I remember, this is why I friggin' love this, and it's so different, because I remember when I was with my minister, one of my ministers, and we were sort of doing bilateral engagement. We're over in Aussie Parliament, and we were meeting with Minister Arthur Synodinos, and he was sitting there, and all his staff were like, remember, you have to keep watching the thing?
The clock?
Yeah. And that, because they were like, oh, sorry, like, there might be a vote, so if we get up and leave, and honest, that was my first experience. So you're sitting there in this meeting, 2 ministers, different countries, talking about serious things, but then they're like, oh, just letting you know.
Yeah.
I may have to leave at some point. Just leave your meeting like that.
Because the clocks all around Parliament, they're just normal clocks, but they also have a green light and a red light in
yes,
there. And if the red light's going off, that means senators have to get to the Senate and cast their vote. And once the light stops beeping and the bells stop ringing, you're locked out. But literally, when the time's up for reps to get into their houses and cast a vote, if you're not there, the speaker, once the bells stop ringing, will literally stand up and say, lock the doors, and the doors get locked and you're not allowed in. Like,
oh my God. Have there been MPs like outside?
Yeah. And there's also, because the way they vote is if you're voting yes on something, you have to sit on one side of the house, and no on something, you sit on the other side. And the whips usually tally up the votes and cross-reference and all of that. But there have been times when MPs just aren't paying attention, or they get caught chatting, or they're asleep, and so haven't moved to the other side with the rest of their party.
No.
And have voted against their party because they weren't paying attention.
Okay, what does that look like in practice, like behind the scenes? Do they get like dragged by their
absolutely.
party?
I remember one of the MPs I worked for over in Australia. He did something naughty, and his punishment was it was more punishment on the staff, really, because we then had to go and research marine dugongs and write speeches about them, and he just got put on all the boring bills that no one was interested in. So yeah, the punishment, I think, because we're also in a hung parliament, it gets quite difficult to punish anyone just in case they take the whole ship down.
Yeah, true.
So you just get little things like speeches on boring bills because no one's watching that. You don't get any airtime off a speech about dugongs in the EEZ.
At least you say something controversial.
Oh yeah, and then you get put on worse bills.
Do you think that you could ever be an MP?
God no.
Well, there was no hesitation there.
Well, I think I could. Would never want to though.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, as a staffer, you see the way MPs are treated. It's sort of, there's so many people who, once you're a politician, they don't see you as human. And quite frankly, my mouth would get away from me and I'd start doing some very unbecoming things of a public figure. So I would want to defend myself against attacks, and MPs are almost sort of expected to just take it. You see the hate-filled messages coming through inboxes, particularly when you're working for MPs who aren't straight white men.
Yeah.
If you're a brown gay man or an ethnic woman, it's even worse. And
God forbid somebody is Indigenous that has an opinion.
And it just, you can try and, as a staff member, shelter your MP from that, but whether it's, you can't block them from their Facebook Messenger messages that come through, or their Instagram, or their Twitter, or their email that comes directly to them with all kinds of threats.
Yeah.
And it's because people don't like the party you're in, or don't like the policies your party's promoting. That's never what comes through in messages, though. It's always direct personal attacks. And you can put up your walls and remind yourself that they don't hate me, they hate the party or the policy. But there's only so many direct attacks on you as a person that can hold back. So,
is there a really bad one that you can remember of your time in politics?
A few that you've have to pass on to Parliament security, and that get passed on to the police, death threats, and threats of rape. Like, that's disgusting.
What?
It's disgusting.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah.
And so, all power to the people who do put themselves forward and are thriving in their roles.
Yeah.
But
takes a lot.
Not for me.
Yeah, not for you.
Not interested. I respect so much people who can put themselves forward for a role like that I will happily support them in that journey, but I'm not interested.
Yeah, not interested. Yeah, that's pretty clear. We're gonna do the Mole of Bravery shortly, and you're well familiar with this.
Well, I wrote them, but I don't remember what's in there.
Yeah, that's right. I hope we get you a dodgy one. Nah, to be fair, there's not any dodgy ones, because we talked about this when we were putting this together.
Or did you update it before I came in?
Yeah, so I had to change them all. No, because we talked about this, and then we thought, how far do we really want to push the boat out? And then we thought, probably we do actually want guests to come back.
Yeah.
So yeah, but one of the things that I'm always very, very interested in is just what advice that you'd give for younger people thinking about politics, because we both sort of have been in and around politics for a very long time, and we would still be considered young in terms of politics. I mean, I even got called rangatahi a couple months ago, and I was like, really think that's pushing out the boat.
I got called matua the other day. No.
Yes. What would be your advice or your takeaway?
Actually, my real advice is, if you're dead keen on getting involved, be persistent, because I'm not sure how often that online sign-up form is actually checked.
Well, the one that says volunteer to help.
Yeah. I know, as we get closer to the election, it's checked more regularly, but it doesn't have to be centrally with the Labour Party. Find out who your local candidate is. Flick them a message, because they will always appreciate the support and sort of bring you into the team. And there's so many jobs to do.
Yeah. So many.
So many. My favourite is door knocking.
Do you like door knocking?
I love door knocking.
What is wrong with you?
I think, as a field organiser, sort of direct voter contact is the most important thing you can do to get your message out.
Yeah.
And it's not one-way communication that matters. You have to be able to have a conversation with people. And I think I hate phone calling because I'm a millennial. No, because
I hate phone calling too. I'm not very good
at it. I think it's because the difference in the conversations you have on the phone versus on the doors. People, because they can't sort of see that you're a real person over the phone, they're a lot ruder.
Yeah.
And so I'd rather rock up to someone, it's a door, have a knock and be like, be good. Put a face to
that's true.
Put a face to the party and actually have a conversation. That doesn't mean they're not still aggressive, but it happens far less, and people can sort of treat you like more of a human than they do on the phone.
I do find it hard though, like if you're a volunteer door knocking and your candidate's not door knocking.
Oh, that's breaking one of the fundamental rules.
100%.
Candidates have to lead by example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, who was it?
I'm not just talking.
So I'll have a word with them.
I just remember that, being on that doorstep and just being like, I really don't like this because I feel like it's a personal at me and I'm just trying to just do a job. I do remember leaflet dropping. I quite like that. Probably because it sans any human interaction. And I remember was that, again, in a heavily Labour area, putting national flyers out. And then people, getting them and then chucking them all, in the bin or in the gutter or whatever. You could say, you could see them. So I just went back and re-leafleted all the cars.
See, it's the thing I don't get though. Is you may not like the flyer. It doesn't mean you need to litter.
Yeah.
Put it in the bin, please.
To be fair, I always get these Auckland Transport ones, and they come out of my letterbox, and I look at them, and it's consults out. I'm like, into the recycling. As I'm walking from the letterbox to the recycling bin, looking at it, okay, you're gonna dig up another part of the road. Okay, cool.
More cycle waste.
All right, bowl of bravery, ready to go?
Let's go.
I hope that you get a really hearty one.
I'm trying to rack my brain with what is on these. I genuinely
you're gonna
can't.
be able to remember. We did these 2 months ago, and we did them in a high state of stress. So
Google really helped writing them. All right. Oh God, what is your proudest accomplishment and why?
Well, we're probably going to have to put that one back in because that's a nice one to know. You can answer it, but yeah.
Wow.
For everyone listening, we're not in dead air. Jesse's thinking.
Yeah. For the audio listeners.
Yeah.
There's so many. I think one that comes to mind is
Don't laugh and look at me!
Well, no, it's...
He literally just cracked up. If you're listening, he literally just cracked up and then looked directly at me.
Well, no, I think it's... before working here, worked at an NGO, and there were some big social issues that we were working on, and without knowing it at the time, it's basically an in-house lobbyist.
Yeah.
But just being able to go and sort of clear the decks, coach the team into a place of getting their message right.
Yeah.
And pushing for what they wanted on behalf of the people they represented.
Yeah.
And getting around some massive internal changes that meant we could sit down with ministers finally after a really long time of being ignored, just changing that perception of the organisation from one of being wowsers to one of actual evidence and data and fact, and now being sort of respected and partnering with the government on fixing some big social issues.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of the long-term achievements that I'm sure will endure, that I'm really happy to have worked on.
And the why?
I think because the issues that they deal with had impacted my whānau as well. And so it was sort of a way of, there was always a little bit of me in the work, and I still, whenever I see press releases go out, feel really proud that I could be a part of supporting whānau like that.
That's amazing. I love that. Yay, on a high note. Now with Tāwhiri Mātia, I'd like to add anything to the conversation.
70-something days to go. So many political storms to come, I'm sure.
What a fun. I love it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Actually, I was thinking before when we were talking about people who are absent from the house. We do a pānui at Awhi called Kei Te Aha Parimata. Oh. If you want to know what's going on in Parliament and maybe figure out your position on bills, sign up. That's
like, and here's something else you can do. No, I love that. Yeah. Where did they sign up? Isn't it? I can't remember what it is.
Panui.awhigroup.nz/Parliament?
Yeah, I think it's Parliament, yeah.
Or it's just Linktree /AwhiNZ.
Yeah.
It's got everything you need to know.
Linktree /AwhiNZ. Yeah. Okay, amazing. And then you can hear from this one directly. It's been my absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for sharing all of the amazing anecdotes, all the way from Australia to Aotearoa, all the way into the Awhitari. It's my honour to be able to work with you. I really enjoy spending pretty much every day of my life with you.
We're just running around screaming at each other from across the office. Did you see this?
I'm sure that after this election campaign, you will have some amazing kōrero to share.
Always stories out of an election.
So I'm going to get you back on after the election. Once you've had a break, potentially had another...
Once you've had a sleep.
Had a moi, had another blue bowl with lollies and alcohol in it.
Might have to make it a red one this time.
Yeah. Maybe we can bring them on to the podcast, but hey, I mean, we're already wild enough as it is.
QSP after hours.
Yeah, after hours. I wish you all the best for your campaign.
Thank you.
It's going to be amazing. Always alongside here to tautoko you. You're a superstar, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
That's our latest episode. Remember, you can check out all of our other episodes on quitesimplypolitics.nz, or you can check them out on our YouTube channel. And of course, the audio is available on all podcast platforms. That's it for another episode. Next week, we are back, and we're back with our ministers and MPs. So we've got a party leader next week. So make sure that you tune in. And just to round it all out, I'm super aware that I forget to introduce myself every time I do this podcast, but I feel like I don't need to do it. But for all of you that are listening, I'm Holly. Thank you so much for joining us, and that's another episode of Quite Simply Politics. See you soon.